It's pretty safe to say that the Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall era of Doctor Who is the most controversial since the show was rebooted in 2005. However, after the very divisive Series 11, 2020's Series 12 appeared to be an improvement, with the majority of fans enjoying the two-part opener Spyfall, but the following episode, Orphan 55, would soon find itself dividing the fanbase once more, receiving a generally negative reception from fans and casual viewers alike. Orphan 55 sees the Doctor and her companions go on holiday to Tranquility Spa, where they find themselves fighting for survival against the mutant monsters known as the DREGS. Despite its poor reception, the episode had potential, but what would it take to improve Orphan 55 and fix some of its biggest mistakes without completely overhauling the story? Not much, actually. Disclaimer, this is just how I personally would fix the episode with minimal changes. It's just my opinion, not objective fact. So what exactly went wrong with Orphan 55? One of the biggest issues of the episode is its pacing. It doesn't have a clear structure to it. Orphan 55, much like almost every fictional work, tries to conform to the traditional Todorov narrative structure. You have an equilibrium, a disruption, and a new equilibrium. The equilibrium is the starting point, where things are the status quo, everything is how it should be for our protagonists. The disruption is the event which changes this status quo, setting the narrative in motion and taking up the bulk of the story. The new equilibrium is the resolution of the story, where the disruption is finally fixed and the story ends. In the case of Orphan 55, the equilibrium is the Doctor, Graham, Ryan and Yaz arriving at Tranquility and having a good time. The disruption is the drag attack, and the new equilibrium is everyone teleporting home. On paper, this works just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's very much a Doctor Who plot. However, in practice, the equilibrium and new equilibrium are too short, ruining the pacing and making the overall resolution feel unsatisfactory. It all feels too sudden, like the episode ran out of time and they had to cut half of it out. This is a common criticism of the Chris Chibnall era of Doctor Who, with episode endings feeling rushed and underdeveloped. In the case of Orphan 55, the easy fix for this problem is to restructure the narrative to give us longer bookends for the episode, allowing the beginning and ending to have more time to breathe. This is actually quite simple to do. First, you move the scene of Vorm fighting the DREGS to be the cold open.
Okay, there's more than one. I'll have to retreat.
This sets up the mystery aspect and establishes that there's a dangerous threat. For the equilibrium, I would keep the Doctor and the TARDIS crew arriving at Tranquility, but you let it breathe more and stretch it out, with each character enjoying their stay and getting to know the supporting cast, whilst the Doctor follows a mystery. This gives the episode a nice platform to build off as we ease into the narrative and have some fun moments and interactions, seeing how everyone reacts to the free holiday. It also allows us to follow the Doctor as she tries to unravel a mystery from the smallest of breadcrumbs, because that's a key part of the Doctor's character, almost as if they're desperate for there to be something wrong so that they can save the day.
Stay here. I'll investigate. It's probably nothing. Usually nothing. I say usually.
Rather than the disruption being the all-out immediate chaos we get just a few minutes into the episode, we should have the Doctor come across the breached ionic membrane, exposing the spa as a dome on an uninhabitable world. She takes Yaz to confront Hyphen, Kane and Vorm, like she actually does in the episode, but this time she's with Yaz. This will be important for addressing the bloated main cast we have with the Doctor and three companions. The Doctor and Yaz end up locked inside the security centre as the dome is breached, with Graham and Ryan still out in the spa with the rest of the supporting cast. This splits everyone into two distinct groups, giving us the Doctor in the secure control room and two companions trapped outside as she directs them to safety. This is a common trope of Base Under Siege stories, as it gives us a sense of urgency and danger because the Doctor can't outright rescue the companions, along with also giving us multiple character viewpoints, breaking up the story and keeping the pace snappy by switching between them whenever necessary. Orphan 55 is supposed to be a Base Under Siege story, but it doesn't really hit the right beats of the genre. Base Under Siege is one of the most common genres for Doctor Who, introduced during the Patrick Troughton era of the 1960s. These episodes usually place the Doctor and their companions inside some kind of base, where they and the supporting cast must survive and escape from a threat. Good New Who examples of this type of story are Series 2's Impossible Planet Satan Pit 2-parter and Series 9's Under the Lake Before the Flood 2-parter. However, the big problem with Orphan 55 is that the entire cast goes out of the dome searching for Benny, only to end up going back to the dome on foot. It serves almost no purpose and needlessly bloats the episode. It gives us 3 story beats, some character deaths, Bella's betrayal, and the revelation that they are on Earth. All of these story beats can still be used without ever leaving the dome. By removing the outside sequence, you can expand upon the Base Under Siege aspect of the story and dedicate the time to character interactions, streamlining the narrative. It gives you more time to establish the supporting cast and give you a reason to care about them. It's actually quite easy to remove the outside sequence whilst retaining its few story beats. The Doctor is directing Ryan, Graham and the rest of the supporting characters towards safety because there is a single dreg on the loose. Benny goes missing, but they have to carry on. At some point, Ryan and Bella get separated from the others and are trapped in a room with no way out. Graham and the others get to safety in a secure room with the rest of the guests. But before they can close the door, Vilma hears Benny and goes out, resulting in her death. At this point, we learn about the creatures from Kane, who explains that they can adapt and lure people out by stealing the voices of loved ones. The Doctor decides to go and rescue Ryan and Bella herself, finding a way to them through a dreg-infested tunnel. As Yaz directs her via a screen, the Doctor comes across a sign identifying the tunnel as being on Earth, which she refuses to believe. But she comes across the Alpha Dreg and sees for herself by tapping into its memories. Whilst this is happening, Ryan and Bella are having a long, handy expositional conversation, which establishes Bella's family issues and why she's unemployed. It's basically the conversation they have in the truck, but in a different context and scenario. It brings them closer together and gives us a reason to care about Bella's sacrifice at the end of the episode. It also gives us a break in the action, slowing things down and focusing on character dynamics, which is another basic principle of Base Under Siege stories. When the Doctor gets Ryan and Bella back to the control room, it is revealed that Bella intentionally sabotaged Tranquility by breaking the ionic membrane, allowing the dregs to attack. She reveals that she did it because she knows the truth of what her mother is doing, and it's wrong because the planet is Earth, and nobody should be able to own their home planet like it's just another rock in space. Ryan and Yaz are shocked, but also confused as to why the Doctor isn't shocked, and they're outraged when she admits she'd already found it out. Before we can explore this further, they realise Graham and all the other guests aren't safe and they need to get to the teleporter, but it turns out to be broken. The climax of the episode sees the Dreg Horde break through into the spa. This ups the stakes dramatically because we would have only been dealing with one Dreg up to this point. The Doctor has to fix the teleporter to get everyone home, so it becomes a race against time, with Hyphen, Vorm and some of the background guests being killed off. With just the Doctor, Bella and Kane left, the teleporter can only take one more person, so Bella and Kane decide to stay behind and sacrifice themselves as a way of redeeming themselves for putting everyone in this situation, despite the Doctor's protests. As soon as the Doctor gets back to the TARDIS, she takes it straight back to Tranquility to rescue Bella and her mum from the Dreg. There wasn't too much wrong with Orphan 55's ending. It was just too rushed, and it made no sense that the Doctor didn't go back to save Bella and Kane. It contradicts a lot of other episodes where the Doctor goes back to save people, so having the Doctor save Bella and Kane gives the episode less of a cynical feeling. It wouldn't devalue their sacrifices because it gives them a chance to live and become better people, rather than just dying in vain. The big message of Orphan 55 is about global warming and how it will destroy the planet, and this is fine. Doctor Who has tackled environmental issues before, such as Season 10's The Green Death, so there's no problem with the message, but Orphan 55 fails at how it's communicated. Doctor Who has always been a very liberal and politically charged show. Like most science fiction, the Daleks are Nazis, Sarah Jane Smith is a feminist, the Doctor hates guns, you get the gist. The thing is, most of the time Doctor Who handles these kinds of issues with an expertly crafted level of subtlety and subtext, giving you enough of the message without forcing it down your throat. The problem with Orphan 55 is that it's about as subtle as Greta Thunberg throwing a brick through your window. It's a very good, important message to tell, but it's mishandled. It lacks that subtlety, especially because the Doctor gives a big tacked-on monologue about global warming at the end. This can be easily toned down to make it smoother and convey the message in a more natural way. Have the Doctor explain to her companions that time is in flux and she has been to all sorts of futures that never came true. Where they have just been isn't necessarily the future if they can fix things, but it's where it's headed if things don't change. Rather than a pessimistic monologue, we get an optimistic monologue about how humanity adapts and overcomes. It can easily stop that future from happening. This isn't even all that different to the speech we got. It just needs to be trimmed down a bit, removing some lines to make it flow. An emphasis on time being in flux also addresses the problem that people have about it all being explained as an alternate future. Because believe it or not, that's happening all the time in Doctor Who. I mean, Enemy of the World was set in 2013 and that never happened in the end, did it? Have the Doctor name drop Harriet Jones, for example, because our companions and the audience will know of her. She was supposed to herald humanity's golden age, but that never happened because of the Christmas invasion. Orphan 55 suffers from being overly complicated. It tried squeezing a lot into a short amount of time. It's only 45 minutes compared to the 50-minute average of the Chibnall era so far. As the episode proves, those extra 5 minutes can be crucial for a Doctor Who story, even though we had been watching 45-minute episodes for 13 years until series 11. Writer Ed Hime clearly had some good ideas for the episode, and the twist of the planet being a metro like Earth is promising. It just needed to be delivered a little bit better, if it needs to be there at all. The majority of issues stem from the writing and narrative, so the episode mainly just needs some narrative trimming and restructuring, but that's pretty much it. Condensing it down to a basic 3-act narrative with more of an emphasis on the base Under Siege conventions gives you a tighter story to flesh out your world building and character work. It also allows you to pace the episode better and play to your strengths, rather than it being chaotic and confusing like the actual episode was. Orphan 55 very much feels like a first draft that the script editor forgot to look at, despite that literally being their job. The entire truck sequence is completely unnecessary and derails the plot because the characters end up going right back to where they were before, for no reason. It's the personification of how overly complicated this episode is, when it could be so easily fixed and streamlined. After a promising start, Orphan 55 quickly became a chaotic mess, but you can see its potential shining through the numerous cracks, which is the most frustrating part of it. I'm not saying my changes would suddenly turn it into some all-time classic, but it would at least allow the episode to have a coherent identity and fit into the genre it's supposed to be part of. But what do you think? Would you rewrite Orphan 55? How would you try to fix it? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.